Docs Sports presents. Football Release Party Live Event Thursday, August 21st.
Hey everyone, welcome to Doc's Football Release Party. I am your host, Robert Ferrigno. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us. It is 6 o'clock on Thursday, 6 Eastern. You know what that means. That means the football plays for this week just went live. Go over to docsports.com, get your picks, or you can get them emailed to you. That email should be to you in a few minutes. For the uninitiated, which I want to thank you to all of the new members that we have that signed up over here. For the uninitiated, what we are doing is every Thursday when our picks go live, we are coming right here, YouTube Live. I'm bringing in a bunch of the handicappers from Doc Sports, and we're just going to talk shop. We're going to talk games. We're going to talk tips and tricks. We're going to give you kind of a behind-the-scenes look at what it is like to be a professional handicapper and to make the decisions that we have made. Also, down in the description, you could take advantage of that free 60 link. What that is $60 free that you can go to Docs and use, same as cash basically, towards any handicapper for any package in any sport. Let's be honest. You came here, it's a football release party, so you came here for some football picks. Well, that free $60 will get you 2 free $30 top games. That's right. For the first time this season, we have top games at Docs. Those are $30 a piece. We got a bunch of 5-unit college football plays on the board this week. So we got a great show here. We got Raphael Esparza, Jason Sharpe, Scott Spreitzer, and Craig Trapp is going to be dropping in to round it off. And yeah, let's get it going. Let's get Raphael in here and talk some week 0 college football action. Raphael, we're twins.
Twins.
What's up, man?
What's going on? It's a crazy time. I mean, we're here doing this, and then I don't know what people are doing. The preseason money is flying in right now as Pittsburgh Carolina number is going completely nuts. So sorry if I keep on looking at my screen. I'm thinking about maybe middling this game because I do have a little action myself on this game.
Talk to me. What's going on here? Let's share with the people that are in here if you see an opportunity.
Total's now 34.5, pretty much from 35. Saw 36 this morning. I think that people are betting it under. So if we can go down to 34, I might take a shot at maybe middling. I took a little bit 36 earlier. So either that or wait for live betting on this, or you could probably wait to see if it's a dull game where you get a lower total. And now offshore just moved it to 6 as Pittsburgh now is -6. So I think we're no more 6.5. So I think by the time kickoff, I think everything would be 6 in this game.
Was there an announcement that players aren't playing for the Steelers? Is there bad weather at this game? What do you think is driving this movement?
Let's see. 6, an hour left. Week 3. People are jonesing for football. College week 0. Parlay action going to baseball games to these football games. That's all it is. It's just crunch time and people are coming home from work.
Interesting that under money is driving this number down, apparently, when all we've seen is overs and high-scoring games so far in the NFL preseason. We talked about that on last week's football release party about how ridiculous it was. God, what was it, like 13-2-1 on
week
the
one.
over in week 1. And then last week it was split, 8-8. So obvious regression. Do you see that continuing? Do you think we're going to see more unders with fewer starters playing in these games? Or are we still riding that over train in these NFL preseason games?
I'm going to track this week's totally different. I'm going to see how many first halves go over and how many second halves go under. Because you figure all the starters are probably going to play probably with the first half, maybe just first quarter, and then pull them away and then let the people battling for position for second string tight end or stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward totally opposite on to these week 3 preseason games, first half totals and second half totals.
I'm not going to lie to you. I did not look at a single NFL preseason line this week. I didn't even want to tempt myself or put out there. That's what I was going to ask is, was there anything at all that was intriguing to you about this preseason?
In Baltimore, why not? They're 2-0 straight up against the spread. And I can't believe I didn't play it. So I think Baltimore wins week 3, like 55-0. And I'm going to be kicking myself as I'm watching college football tomorrow. Why didn't I play the Ravens? But no, usually even if I saw value, I mean, I only played a couple of small things myself, and I tell people when I do my show and stuff like that, I usually play a lot of stuff because I can try to middle it. So
Sure.
you know me, I'm a big middle. If I can go to bed $1 ahead, and when I woke up, I'm having a good day. So I didn't release anything for preseason. I didn't really dig deep into preseason because we get week 0 football, and I just can't wait for college football.
That's me too. I like the middle. I like to hedge off. I always say if I can put myself in a position where I'm making money no matter who wins or who covers, I've done a good job. Some people look down on that, but I think that's the difference between guys like you and I who do this every single day and have been doing this every single day for 20 years, which shout out to us. This is our 20th football season. For those of you that don't know, when we first came on back in 2006, and I know that's weird. That sounds like it's only 19 years, but it's our 20th football season. Trust me, Docs was the only guy that sold picks on the site. And then we made that expansion. He brought on 5 new handicappers, and Raphael and I were 2 of the initials that came in. So we've been at this for a while with Doc Sports. Now, okay, you mentioned something that I wanted to ask you about. And that is that pent up demand for football bets, right? Like the whole month of August, I felt like has been such a strip tease, right? Like they're giving us a little bit of football at a time. Like we're going to give you the Hall of Fame game, just that one little game. And then, okay, we got some preseason action to bet in week 1. And then, all right, we got week 2 preseason. We're going to throw some starters in. Now this week we have college football. Honest to God, counts in the standings college football, right? But just a little bit. Just a little tease on this. Talk to me about that pent up, like people want to bet football and how that can be dangerous overextending in week 0, because we only have a few games and we don't have a ton of great numbers. So walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, this week, if you look at people's betting patterns, especially on what the books you look at, tons of 2-teamers. I mean, not that much 3, 4, 5-teamers, which we saw last week in preseason week 2, because people were still betting preseason because there's no college football. This week, a lot of people did exactly what me and you did. We don't want to mess with preseason week 3. We got real football that's going to count in standings. We have 2 teams, Big 12, in Ireland drinking beer and playing football early off. We have Hawaii and Stanford, the last game out there. We also saw Stanford only having 3 wins last year. Can they do something different? Hawaii's rookie or freshman quarterback, could he do something? The Rainbows, I think, averaged almost 24 points a game last year. Their offense should be much different. So I think people are reading those stories and like, you know what? Football is here. I don't want to mess with preseason. Football is here, and every game is on TV. Even a UNLV game is on TV.
Okay, one of the things we talked about a couple weeks ago in week 1 of the NFL preseason were these early line moves. And you very astutely pointed out, because there were some big swings in NFL preseason. I was like, is that Sharpe money that's moving that? Like, that's what we normally see during the regular season. Big bettors, big sharps coming in that can move it. Or is that dumb money? Is that the public just wildly betting this? You're like, no, it's dumb money. Like these aren't real line moves. We have seen some significant line moves with these week 0 and week 1 games, but focusing on the week 0 games. Now, part of that is a function of these numbers have been up a month, 2 months. Like they have been up there for a while. So they're going to move. But these are real games, not like preseason games where, as you mentioned with that Carolina, where guys just got home from work and they're throwing down action. Walk me through some of these line movements that we are seeing in week 0, and what do you attribute that to?
This is kind of weird. This week 0 has been really stagnant. I mean, look at the first game. The Ireland game opened up at 3.5, and now it's just 3, so a half a point. That's pretty rare. Normally when Notre Dame games, when they're there, in which they should be there every year, Notre Dame should play this Ireland game every year just because they're fighting Irish. Those games were moving 3, 4, 5 points. This won a half a point. So 50-50 action total went up 2 points. But if you're going to watch college football, the first game, you want to watch points. You don't want to see an under game when you're drinking your coffee. So I think that was dumb money. The only thing that came in a little bit smart was Stanford and Hawaii. Stanford opened up 2.5. Why? I have no idea. Didn't they watch them play last year? They're not going to be that much improved. Their defense is going to be probably their weak spot because their best player transferred over to Texas Tech. So he's not there. So that one moved a little bit, opened up Stanford 2.5, swung the other side. Now Hawaii is 2.5. So I think people read that, and I think that's smart money. Everything else was pretty much just 50-50 money coming in.
Yeah, that Fresno State Kansas line making kind of an interesting move. Opened at 14.5, obviously above 2 touchdowns, little value on the underdog. Got bet down to 12.5, but now we're seeing that number move back up. Okay, so Fresno State, or excuse me, is that Kansas money coming in late? Do you think that they overreacted moving it? Like, even here, I told our producer Lenny, like 2 minutes before we went on, he had Kansas at -13. I was like, no, it's 12.5. I'm looking at the book now. It's 13.5. Again, sharp money coming in on Kansas. Are they just readjusting because maybe they moved that number a little too much during the summer? Like, how are you reading this game?
I just think they put that number up 14 right away just to see what money was coming in. Let money dictate the movements for month after month. And then right now, it's pretty much, I would think it would probably close around 12.5, 13. It's when you see numbers, especially this summer for months after months, they're going to put a number up because I used to do this all the time when we used to just put up key games, the marquee games month after month. Let the betting public tell you. If you made a bad number, okay, you can move it 2 points, but you have month after month before the kickoff to get that 2 points back. I just think they put out too big of a high number at 14, and it balanced it off.
All right, for those of you that don't know, Raphael spent over a decade as a sportsbook manager on the Las Vegas Strip. So he's been on both sides of the windows here. That's why he brings a little bit of a unique perspective. I do also want to take this opportunity to point out that we have a promo code for this week. The promo code is week0, spelled out right there. Special offer, just like that. That is going to give you a 25% off a 1 week NFL package. I believe that our 1 week packages, we're still doing our special preseason pricing where it's $45 for the full weekend of picks. A lot of the handicappers do have some college football and some preseason. So you can email in and check and see if guys have kind of split cards that you can take advantage of. You can get that 25% off. Also, those $30 top games. I also want to mention that right now we still have our early bird special on our full season packages at $749. You have 3 weeks left to take advantage of that full season package price. That is our best number of the deal. And that number I mentioned last week, that price has been exactly the same since when Raphael and I started. So no inflation here at Doc Sports. If anything, you are getting a way, way better deal. So
no tariffs. We have no tariffs on our football.
No tariffs. That's right. We are bringing this straight to the consumer right here. Raphael, are there any like futures tickets, futures prices in the college football market? Was there anything that jumped out at you this summer in terms of longer term bets, season win totals, conference championship odds? Were there any futures or any long-term bets that you liked this summer?
Really shocked at the money that came in for a Big Ten three-peat. I mean, Penn State was the Kool-Aid flavor of all summer.
Everybody loves that, right? Yeah.
They keep on getting all this action coming in. And if I'm going to look at a team in the Big Ten, I would probably look at Oregon. I mean, yes, Penn State is stacked and all that. I think Ohio State's going to have a little bit of trouble bringing in some new head coaches, and D I think might be on a little bit of weak side. But I'm a little bit shocked at how much money came in on Big Ten all through. So I took a little Oregon to a team total money going over something like that because I think they could surprise everybody. The travel didn't bother them last year. We saw Washington have some travel issues, and you can look like they were becoming stagnant. Oregon has all that Nike money. They didn't have any problem traveling to all these games, so I thought they were a little bit soft. And keep an eye out for Alabama. I love this Alabama team. I know everyone says Georgia and stuff like that. This Alabama team can maybe surprise people. And I hate to use the word surprise when you talk about Alabama, but how they played last year, I think this team can be very successful and maybe knock off Georgia.
Yeah, but really important pickup this offseason for them wasn't in the transfer portal. It was getting Ryan Grubb back.
Yep.
Ryan Grubb was Kalen DeBoer's offensive coordinator in Washington when they went to the national championship. They lost him to the NFL last year. He had a little cup of coffee up as Seattle's offensive coordinator, the Seahawks. They weren't into him. So as soon as they cut the cord with him, he went running to Alabama to jump on with DeBoer. Do you think that he will make a significant impact on Ty Simpson and the Alabama offense?
I mean, you've had this discussion. Some coaches are just better college coaches than NFL coaches. And there's a perfect example right here. And who did he go run into? Alabama. I think that's a great pickup. And I think that's why I really like Alabama, because of him. And this offense is going to be much smoother than last year. All
right, I want to bring Jason Sharpe in here and get his opinion. Now, Jason, we were just talking about futures, preseason prices, more like long-term bets heading into the college football season. I know that you are more of like a focus on the now type of handicapper when it comes to that type of stuff. Do you look at any of that over the course of the summer? Do you look at season win totals? Do you look at conference championship odds? Me personally, I have done videos on the show talking about how dumb I think it is for people to bet on who's going to win the national championship because the payout isn't worth what it actually takes to do that. Like, what's your take on futures betting in college football?
I've seen my most success with season win totals, college football, which is really became a new thing over the last decade. It really wasn't around as much 10 years ago, but I will steal other people's work when it comes to this. A lot of people I respect that are really working hard on that stuff in the off season. If I catch on and they convince me, and I've done well with it. Same with the NFL. But as far as like national championship and odds like that, no, I don't mess with that. But season win totals, I think there's a lot of value in that. But, like anything, the earlier you get those bets in, probably the better. And it's getting close to the start of the season right now. And I don't know if there's a lot of value left this time of the year on season win totals. But yeah, I will look at season win totals in college football. No doubt.
What do you think about that, Raphael? Do you think that there's still a little nibble of value out there on season win totals, or do you think that time has passed and the best time to jump on those are like June?
There's value if you like dog money. If you're looking for a good plus money, because everyone pounded the favorite right now. So if you're looking at something that's maybe now minus 180 and the over, and you think this team's garbage, you can get really good money on the plus 150 right now, because the books are trying to balance all that over money. So they might put a bigger price tag on the plus money on that one. So, but I always tell people, if you're gonna bet total season wins or anything like that, get a separate book for futures. Don't bet your futures with your everyday book, because why would you want to log in and see all this future money stuck in the corner when you can use it? Get two books, one for futures and one for your daily stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned going against those odds and getting the under again plus money. Like I'm gonna fade your Alabama pick, man. I'm gonna get that Alabama under and go against your Alabama just for that. Well, I'm sure the juice on that season win total is probably minus 180 or something like that. Like I feel like everybody's jumping on them, don't you think?
Yeah, they're a big fan. Ever since the Washington guy coming over all summer long, I think that was a big pickup. But then everyone started fading Auburn, and then I think everyone thinks LSU is probably going to lose to Clemson. So I think that's why all of Alabama love came in the last couple of months.
All right, thank you very much for joining us, Raphael. It's Raphael Esparza. You can find his top plays at DocSports.com, one of the sharpest handicappers in the business. We will see you next week, Raphael.
Take it easy, guys, and Green Bay wins next week.
All right, Jason. So again, it's week 0, so it's just kind of that dress rehearsal. We're just getting little nibbles at college football where we get the fire hose gets opened up next week. But there is one game with honestly huge significance in a conference tournament race, a conference championship race, and that's that Iowa State Kansas State game, the Farmageddon. What are your thoughts? Like, we talked about line movements. We've seen some relatively significant movements in some of the other games. The Hawaii game moved 5 points through the 0. That Western Kentucky game moved 3 points. Boise State, South Florida, all that. This number's held pretty firm. Like, what do you read into that, and what do you read into this matchup?
Yeah, these two teams, Iowa State, Kansas State, are programs that are basically almost identical. They're really good in the underdog role. They play a physical, typically lower scoring type games. There's very physical programs, and they're built. They got traditional coaches in place that have been there a long time. Campbell, I think, has been there 10 years. I think was it Chris Kleiman or 7 years. So they match up really well, and I think they both do a lot of the same things. And because of that, I think you have to be very careful. I think that's why the spread is very, very low, because I think it could be a toss up either way. You can make a case almost for both sides, which I will make a case for one side here in a minute. But
a little
free play we got
coming. A little tease there for us. Okay.
You want to hear that? Okay, we'll go to that. Iowa State, they're coming off a program, school record 11 wins last year under Matt Campbell. They returned 13 starters, including their starting quarterback from last year. They went to the Big 12 championship game, and they were beat, but they did win the bowl game. So like I said, 13 returning starters. It's a pretty decent amount in today's college football. they just match up very well with Kansas State, in fact, and they've covered the last 5 years straight against K-State. The last five times they've played over the last 5 years, and Campbell in general, just like the K-State coach, just is excellent in an underdog role. I think he's covered over 60% in the 10 years he's been there, which is pretty impressive. And K-State on the other side, some people have them ranked a little bit higher than Iowa State going into the year, but they only returned 10 starters, but they do have the better quarterback probably in this matchup. The big loss for Iowa State and the big difference in this game is Iowa State did lose some key wide receivers to the NFL. But overall, if you're going to give me a chance to take the underdog in these two programs that match up pretty much identical to each other, +3, I'm willing to take it. So yeah, my free play selection is Iowa State in this game, +3.
I do know that two of the handicappers at Docs both have top plays. They both have 5-unit sides in this game. I believe it's Craig Trapp, Scott Rickenbach. I don't want to tip my hand on what side they have, but they are in agreement. Like they both have the same top play in this. My thing when I looked at this, didn't use it as a side, but I can say that like there has been a trend of those teams going overseas. We have seen some upsets in those games. Now Notre Dame absolutely laid the wood to Navy in one of the games in Dublin a couple of years ago. But I remember Northwestern beating Nebraska as like a double-digit underdog, like winning outright. And of course, last year we had Georgia Tech upset Florida State. So like how much does your lean on Iowa State factor into what we've seen underdogs do in the past and just how the uncertainty of going overseas? We don't know how these kids are going to react to playing in this type of situation. How much does that factor into your handicapping of this game?
Not a ton, but a little bit. I think it's always a better idea earlier in the season to look to get the points, just because that's the way I look at things. Underdogs just seem to play better earlier in the year because we don't quite know this based a little bit more off of last year's information. But I will always lean that. But like I said, both of these programs are just, they're not really good in the favorite role. And traditionally, Campbell keeps the games close. Both teams keeps the games close. They know each other very, very well. So any points I think is huge here because of how well these programs know each other. And I expect it to go right down to the end and, be a very close game. So any points, 3 points is valuable to me.
So I was talking about this earlier on Docs Daily, which if you don't know, Docs Daily is a live show, a lot of free plays, a lot of good analysis from a lot of different handicappers every day from 1 to 1:30 on the Docs YouTube channel. If you are enjoying this show or you're looking for more content like this, like and subscribe this Docs YouTube channel, okay? And you will be alerted anytime that we post stuff new. Well, we were talking about underdogs and how there's a pretty clear trend in how the betting has gone over the last couple of weeks. Like if you look at all of these week 0 lines, everybody's on the underdog in these games. And I didn't have the information earlier on Docs Daily, but I went back and I looked it up. Week 0 underdogs over the last 6 years. Now it's really only 5 years because there was no week 0 in the 2020 COVID year, but over the last 6 years or 5 seasons where we've had it, underdogs in week 0 are 18-10 against the spread. Okay. You can see the graphic right here. And if you're looking at that, they are also 15-6 against the spread over the last 3 years. So I feel like that backs up what you're saying. Early in the season, underdogs. What do you attribute that more to? Just like it's a function of the teams and players just like getting into the season and not being as sharp so you don't see as many blowouts? Or, because we have seen some blowouts, is this the books inflating the numbers? Because they know, like, everybody's jonesing to bet, right? Like, everybody wants to bet this week. And Joe Public is going to come in throwing money on those favorites. So they're juicing up that numbers. What do you think it more is, the players or the books?
Yeah, it's something I'll get into here on our next subject I think we're going to talk about is I like to handicap myself. And I've looked back at my data through the years. And one of the things I've noticed is I've done very well betting college football in the 0 and 1 only when I played underdogs. Now, the exact reason I don't know for that, especially even a little bit bigger underdogs, and I don't really like to lean because it's hard to bet 17, 20-point underdogs because you feel like it's more of a coin flip at that juncture of a game. But myself personally, I've always done very well as well. So I do think there is some extra tax inflation early in the season when it comes to the favorites because like you said, probably the public jumping on just like, hey, I want to bet this team, it's first game of the year, or they're going to be really good this year, and they're not going to be very good. So they just are going to keep bumping the lineup. That would be my best answer. But I've seen the same exact thing. I've seen a lot of success with underdogs in the first week.
That's funny that you mentioned. Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that, because I have found, and same thing, I can't really explain it or put my finger on it, but for me, it's almost been the opposite, is that I have found more success with big underdogs like in November. Early November, when you got those teams that are at the bottom of the standings that are and left for dead, that have lost 5 or 6 games in a row. For some reason a few years ago, I changed my handicapping, and I've done better with those teams later. So it's interesting that you and I are seeing similar things, but at different times of the year. I want you to dive a little bit more into that, because you have been extraordinarily successful early in the season. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm sure you do, but like those first 2 weeks of the college football season, it's been pretty ridiculous for a pretty long amount of time. So what is it about these first couple of weeks that you just really feel locked in and have found a lot of success?
This might be controversial to a lot of people, because, and I, you said you guys earlier, we've been with Docs for 20 years. I think I'm on 17 or 18 myself. And so one of the things I'd like to do, because we have so much data now, especially the longer we've been doing this, is I like to handicap myself, which might sound odd, but because, there's 100 different ways to do this. And I've discovered what I do best, right? And one of the things I've done best over the years is figure out what I do well. And one of those things is I struggle in week 0 and 1, which would be next week as well, because nobody's played. There's a handful of teams just this week. So every team again next week will be in the same boat. No data, no information. And so I struggled for years with that. But right after that, things have exploded. Like I have had, when you add it all up, through the month of September, I've had 8 of 10 winning seasons in football, over $15,000 in profit the last 10 years combined in football. Most of my success in football has been in the month of September. And like I said, a lot of people might think this is controversial, but I'm going to call a box score handicapper. I will go back. I will go I dig through every box score of every game, every week, play by play, just trying to get a general idea. Does this really match what the final score is? Like this team, like for example, I'm looking for information that people don't quite pick up on the final score. You might see a 20-point underdog lose by 24 points, and you're like, oh, they got blown out just as we expected. But if I see that they were down 3 going into the fourth quarter, and then get 21-0, and then all of a sudden it looks like a 24, or just a game with faulty statistics, like 4 or 5 turnovers. That's an easy one you can see. But I look for information that I think is just not being interpreted correctly. And what I will look to find is teams that programs are at a certain level. So for example, Indiana is typically just your average college football team. Well, if they go out in week 1 and they play a game, I like to give a game score to every game. And if they play a game 10, 12 points better, I want to be proactive with Indiana going forward. A lot of people might say, oh, they overachieved in week 1. Well, I'm not saying I'm right every time, but what I am saying is I do tend to get ahead of the game. And I think that's the key. There's only so many weeks before everybody catches up and everybody's kind of got the same opinion. So I've just discovered that weeks 2, college football week 2, which would be NFL week 1, after everybody's got a game in, I go with the information I best get. Here's another little hidden thing that a lot of people I think don't value enough. And this is probably going to shock people. I like to find the FBS teams that play. People would be like, the FCS teams, why would you look at those games? Most people look at the games and go, throw that out. I don't want to look at it after it's over. I like to dig into those FBS teams going against FCS teams and see, did that FBS team, Division I team, did it struggle in this scenario? And I take that information in because I don't think the betting markets take that information in. I think they just look at it as a throwaway game. Mm-hmm. And I think there's just information. I'm just looking to find information that the betting market is not putting enough stock into. And at the end of the day, I get proactive with that. And it's
okay. I want to stay there for a second, because one of the things that we were talking about before we came on the show that you admitted that you and I are on the opposite ends of the spectrum with is you said that you kind of have stopped doing a lot of preseason research reading. You kind of want to keep the brain clear. So when the games start, you're not going on preconceived notions. You're just going on what you're seeing going into. For me, I'm the exact opposite. Like, I do so much work and so much preparation before the season that I get my teams. I'm like, okay, I like these teams. I don't like these teams. And then it's almost like I wait for the season to play out. And I'm like, all right, this team that I didn't like, they won 3 out of their first 4 games. Now is the time to start betting against them, right? Like, I know this team isn't as good as what I expect. Like, that's how I set my expectations, is with my preseason stuff. Like, when did you make that change, and how has that helped your handicapping, where you're like, you know what, I'm not going to clutter my brain with other people's opinions and all this information ahead of time. I'm just going to go based on what I see.
Yeah, probably about a decade ago when things really started to turn around, I found myself betting all the same teams from especially back then. There was the Phil Steele book and a handful of websites, and I found myself, I was betting the same teams, and I was getting them at worse numbers because I was betting them a little too late in the summer. People were jumping on it. And so I just wasn't seeing success in week 0 and week 1. Let me add too that I will change it up come mid-season and start to look at things a little bit more differently. But my theory is early in week 0, week 1, I was always on the wrong. I would think, oh, they're underrated now because they played, played poorly. And then this week I would change, and because I had an opinion, I wanted to catch this team. And so I just decided it was just a lot more cleaner for me. Like I said earlier, there's a million different ways to approach this. Like you said, the way you do it, I've done it that way. And then I had some good years doing it that way. But generally speaking, I found my best to be just trying to be that one step ahead of the betting, the others, by being proactive on things I see that just like, this year, like, for example, I'll give one top of my head right now, because I followed this program closely, living in the state a lot. Michigan last year, they were winning early on, but there were some struggles, and I was like, this isn't the Michigan program that I expected. Like, it was 5 to 10 points lower. And so I just started betting against them. If I recall, I did fairly well doing that. So yeah, it's just a proactive approach that I changed to about 10 years ago. And it really takes off for me. And it really seems to peak for that 1 month stretch, mid-September to mid-October. And then I kind of changed things up a little bit later in the year after that. But
all right, I want to bring Scott Spreitzer into this conversation and see where he kind of falls on the spectrum of preseason preparation. Do we have Scott? There he is.
There we go.
All right, I'm not sure if you were listening, but Jason and I were talking about the 2 different approaches to getting ready for the season. He is more of a, you know what, I don't want to clutter my brain with a lot of like preseason expectations, because sometimes you get yourself locked in on, I feel this way about the team, and then you're just wrong. But you end up like betting them that way the whole season, where I almost feel like I over prepare. For me, I know in July who I want to bet in October type of thing, right? Like, what's your approach to that?
I can see where both approaches, you got to fit your personality, and by that I mean your betting and handicapping personality about getting locked in. Like, for instance, I don't like to see anybody else's plays. I really don't. I don't want to hear, and that means get people I respect, obviously. Yeah. I don't want to hear it till I've decided what I like on my own for the upcoming season. And it's hard to stay away from in the day of the internet. But it's a situation where I start looking at teams, not as much as I used to because of the transfer portal, but I do start looking at teams in college probably in mid-July, about All-Star break of Major League Baseball. It's really when I start to dig in. But I don't have a hard time of getting off of those teams. If, after the first 2 weeks of the regular season, if I see that I'm wrong, after all this time of doing this, I'm able to just say, okay, I was wrong. Let's find out where I was wrong, and spend a couple of days looking to see where I was wrong and then making the adjustments. But sometimes that's tough, man. So you just got to go what's best for yourself. And again, for me, it used to be, man, they used to have the game of the year numbers down at the Golden Nugget, like 1st of June. And I used to run down there, and you were allowed to make like 3 bets, and then you had to go to the back of the line, come back and make 3 bets, go to the back of the line. And you'd see everybody down there, every bettor in Vegas, every handicapper. And I would be prepared by June 1st to go down to the Golden Nugget and hit those game of the year numbers in college football. But again, the transfer portal, guys trying to fit in with starters, chemistry in the locker room, all that stuff has changed that. I'm a mid-July guy when I start prepping, like for the upcoming college football season. NFL, probably a little bit earlier. And with that line move angle that I play in NFL preseason, it keeps me from being too locked into, what this starter might do based on his preseason and that kind of stuff.
All right. I want to say thank you to Jason Sharpe for taking some time to join us here. I appreciate it. Good luck.
Good luck to you guys as well.
Yeah, if you guys like what you heard from Jason Sharpe, go to Doc Sports. He has his card out this weekend. Everybody at Doc Sports, at least with a little something, some NFL preseason action. You got some smaller plays in college football week 0, some larger plays in college week 0. Scott, one of the things that Jason brought up that I want to get your opinion on, we were talking about the Kansas State-Iowa State game, and he was mentioning returning starters, right?
Sure.
Which is used to be kind of a key statistic when trying to figure out who's bringing back chemistry and things like that. Now that's kind of out of the window, and people kind of calculate that differently. Like, these are the returning starters based on last year's team, or these are the returning starters counting transfers that have starting experience elsewhere. Like, how have you kind of changed your handicapping up in the era of the transfer portal when it comes to those types of things, like trying to gauge chemistry and experience, which are so important?
Yeah, by the way, I think that's a really important question for people who are really trying to do this as more than just an entertainment outlet. People are trying to maybe, fortify their income, as you say, a little bit by getting into sports betting. So I think it's a great question. I do still look at it. I still look at returning production. I was doing a show last night. We were talking about a college football team coming up this week and how they return 60% of their production, and the other team they're playing returns about 34% of their production. And I said, that used to be a 9 out of 10. That's how I weighted that. And now it's probably 4 or 5 out of 10. I'm going to say a 5 out of 10 because of the transfer portal. And then, of course, you can look, and makes it real easy nowadays, jump on the internet and start looking about who's being plugged into missing parts from the season before. And you'll see sometimes, in some cases, you've got a higher rated player from another school that's filling in for somebody who wasn't as highly rated, who's no longer with the team. So I would say probably a 5 out of 10 when it used to be a 9 out of 10, when it comes to returning production. And that goes across all levels. I mean, I don't care if it's, Power 4 or if it's not, if it's one of the group of 5 teams. You can kind of look in because they're plugging in people too and getting busy with the transfer portal. So it's a long-winded answer to your very good question of, it's a 5 out of 10. It used to be a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. It's really disappointing because that is how I used to base a lot of my handicapping, especially early season handicapping. If you had a team that brought back, 18 starters from last year, you could kind of figure that they were going to pick up where they left off the year before, where now you have so many issues where you're like, I don't know what the chemistry is. Yeah. Like, I know that this team brought in a lot of highly touted transfers, good, talented players that have put up numbers, but how are they going to gel? How are they going to play together and stuff like that? So
it used to be, you know what, Robert, it used to be 10 years ago, let's say before the transfer portal started going. And I started doing this in the 90s on a professional basis. And up until the transfer portal got crazy, I would look for teams, and there weren't a lot, but I'd look for teams. I called it my Major League Baseball college football handicap because I called it up the middle. And if I had a team with a new center, a new quarterback, and a new tailback, boom, I'm playing against that team early in the season if they're favored. And you can't really do that anymore. You got to look at all the transfer portals. It kind of threw up the old term that I used, up the middle, for Major League Baseball for college football, kind of went out the window to a big extent.
Yeah, or the team they're playing against is going through the exact same thing with,
exactly.
with a new coach to boot on top of it. Well, okay, so I believe you have one play going this weekend on your week 0 card. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was there any other game in college football that you were thinking about, looked at, jumped out at you, or maybe you're just interested, you know what, I don't like this number, this spot, but I'm real interested to see how this team performs?
Yeah, I can't wait till Iowa State, Kansas State, Farmageddon, right, in Dublin. I cannot wait for this game. I mean, K-State, for the most part, is a 3-point favorite right now. And this game almost made my premium card, Robert, and I ended up sticking with the one game for Saturday. But listen, it's going to go a long way, this contest, in deciding potentially the Big 12 champion. These are 2 of the teams that are in the mix. It's going to go a long way potentially in deciding which one of these teams has a great shot at making the playoffs at the end of the year. A couple of things about Iowa State. They do return 12 starters. Rocco Becht is back at QB. But they've got to replace an excellent receiving core. I think it's going to take a game or two. They play a 335 defense, the Cyclones, which is really good during the regular season, especially outside of the conference when teams don't always see that, don't have a lot of time to prepare for it. But K-State has not only seen it before, they also have had as much time as they would have wanted to prepare for the 335 in August. They've got a fantastic offensive backfield led by Avery Johnson, the QB who's back. To me, they own the best defensive line in the conference, talking about K-State. And they do have my highest rated Big 12 head coach in Chris Kleiman. I've liked this guy since long before he came to K-State. In fact, I'm a Nebraska guy, Robert, and I was really hoping we got Chris Kleiman before he went to Manhattan, Kansas. That didn't come through. But the Wildcats, they're in revenge. They lost last November by 8. They outgained Iowa State, K-State did, and held the Cyclones to 324 yards on 4 yards per play. They had a -2 turnover margin they couldn't overcome. But I've got them power rated better than K-State. I've got them here winning by 7. They just missed being a premium play. That's how close it was.
Wait a second. You have Iowa State beating Kansas State?
I say Iowa State. I meant Kansas State over Iowa State.
Yeah. See, this is juicy. This is juicy, and this is what you come here for, folks, the Docs Football Release Party. Because Jason Sharpe was saying earlier, he kind of liked Iowa State. He likes taking the points. He likes the underdogs, this and that. You just gave a very thorough, reasoned answer on why you like Kansas State. So now that's up to you, the viewers, to decide who is a little more convincing on there. By the way, Chris Kleiman wouldn't have fit in at Nebraska because he's like the anti-Nebraska, because like all Nebraska does is underachieve, lose close games, and not do that. Where all Kleiman does is win and do things like that. Okay, both of these teams, I was shocked to see this when I was looking at their schedule. They're opening in Dublin, conference game, important conference game. Neither one of them is taking a bye after this week. Both teams are going back home, playing an FCS school. Iowa State, they're playing an FCS school, and then they have their rivals Iowa the week after that. Have you already started looking past week 0, past week 1, and trying to set up some situational bets early in the non-conference? Or are you more like Jason, where I'm not going to look ahead. I'm just going to take things week at a time, and I'm going to go based on what I see?
Yeah, I've looked ahead to August 28th and 30th, next week's games, week 1 of college football, and I've got a couple of games that I've earmarked. But I'm kind of along with the line with Jason. When it comes to making futures bets or wins totals bets, like I've got action on K-State. I did a video with Lenny about a month ago, and I was talking about playoff dark horses. I had both Iowa State and Kansas State in my top 5 playoff dark horses, and I talked about this game meeting quite a bit. We'll find out a lot about both teams. But also spoke about, the reason I think K-State has a legit shot to win the conference, even if they lose this game, is because of their schedule, the way it's laid out compared to some of the other top teams in the Big 12 who have tougher schedules. A lot of people high on Utah. Check out that schedule, man. And when these teams got to go on the road, or, you got to check that out. So as far as an individual game, like how I've mapped out schedules, I haven't really done that yet. And it's I kind of fall in line with Jason, where I'm just looking from week to week. Like for instance, let's say September, what would it be, 6th or 7th games in college football. I'll start looking at those games about 2 or 3 days before next week's games are played, August 30th games, because I do make my lines in advance before they come out. And that's another thing. I don't want to be too influenced by what a team just did the prior week. Sure. I want to be influenced by early in the season, my power ratings, later in the season, how they've done over the entire season up to date. And I tell people all the time, learn to make your lines about 10 days in advance of the game so you don't get too caught up in what happened lately. So that's kind of the way I do it. And, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go for August 28th and 30th, and then we'll take it week after week from there.
I know. I was talking about it with Raphael. Like, this whole month of August is like a strip tease with football. Like they're giving us just a little bit at a time, just a little bit. Like, we had preseason, then we had preseason with starters. Now we got just a little bit of college football. So, Lenny, can you put up that underdog graphic? I want to get Scott's opinion on this. So I went back and looked since 2019. Okay, the week 0 is still a relatively new thing. This didn't exist 20 years ago, right? So I wanted to see how underdogs have performed, because I had an opinion that they had been performing kind of well, but I wanted some raw data. As you can see, over the last 6 years, there was no week 0 in the weird COVID 2020 year, okay? But still, basically a 5-year total is they are 18-10 against the spread, and over the last 3 years, underdogs in week 0, 15-6 against the spread. I want to ask you the same thing I asked Jason. Do you attribute that more to just kind of a foundational thing where the players just aren't sharp? So it's harder for a favorite to go out there and lay the wood. Like, more fluky things are going to happen because everyone's not in form yet. Or do you attribute this more to the sports books where they know that there's this pent up demand? People want to bet football, right? Like people are going to bet Western Kentucky, Sam Houston State this weekend just because they want to bet football,
right,
where they wouldn't normally. So the books are kind of nudging those numbers up for the underdogs. Which do you think is like a better explanation for the success of underdogs in week 0?
I think a little bit of both. I think, when you were talking about players, getting used to playing again other than facing each other, their own teammates in practice, that's part of it. The new parts that come in and have to play certain positions that they've never played with that team before, all kind of goes into it. But I also think you start to hit on there too, to your point about the books. And we might have talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I was on with you, Robert, where, there's almost 40 states that have legalized betting now. And we are going to get more public and square money than we've ever seen before. And so public, you know what they like? The average Joe who walks into a book or picks up his app, they want chalk. And so you can kind of nudge that chalk a little bit. At least I would if I was behind the counter. And I've talked to a couple of sportsbook directors in town this summer about that kind of stuff, about, the public's going to want, especially in a marquee game on a Saturday night, or Monday Night Football, they're going to want to play that chalk. That's what they like. They want to see high scoring games. They play the over. So I think we're getting more value maybe over the last few years on these dogs than we got before to start the season. And speaking of your opening question, when I jumped on board with you and Jason, going back to that for a second, I mean, people are prepared. I think the public, the average bettor, not the pro, but the average bettor is locked into their beliefs that they've heard all summer long. Mm-hmm. And I think they get too locked in. And let's say, for instance, I just talked about Kansas State. As far as people maybe got locked into K-State, they don't get off of that. There's nothing that's going to happen the last 2 weeks of August or leading into that game that's going to make people change their mind if they've got a 9-to-5 job and do this casually for entertainment purposes. And because there's so many darn legalized sports betting outlets nowadays, that line's going to adjust more than it ever has before. We never thought about public money moving a line. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, public money moving preseason pro lines. So I think that has a lot to do with a little bit of both, but I think legalized betting in almost 40 states has brought in, again, more square tickets and money than we've ever seen before.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because when people find out what I do, usually they'll be like, oh my God, you just must watch ESPN 24/7 and watch sports. Like, no. Yeah. I watch as little as I can. Like, I don't need opinions. I need information. Like, I don't want other people's opinions, because that can, to your point, calcify in your brain. Yes. And then you're locked into something that maybe you don't feel as strongly about. Before I let you go, I want to bring Craig Trapp in here and see what he has to think about why underdogs. Not sure if you were listening while you were in the hole there, Craig, but talking about underdogs, like, what are your thoughts about why they've been so successful in week 0? More just on the players not being as sharp, which we should be able to expect, or more just the sports books doing a good job of getting out in front of, as Scott mentioned, all those square public bettors that want to just hammer the favorites in the over?
I think a lot of it has to do with the transfer portal. I mean, frankly, you have so much. The good teams used to return tons of players because you can't go to the draft. You can't go to the NFL until 3 years. So it's like a guy that's a good freshman, you got him for 2 more years. Not anymore. Now you got to recruit your team every year. I think it's the most. I think only 12 or 13 is the most returning starters for any of the top 25 teams this year. That's crazy.
Yeah, Clemson and Illinois are like the outliers. They both brought back like 16 or 17. But yes, to your point, like, other than that, I don't think anybody has more than 12 or 13.
It's just crazy. Now, more have I think almost you got to go count them as like, did they start somewhere last year? Did they start in a Power 5 last year? Because those are kind of returning starters now. They just weren't returning starters for you. But there's just so much more information out there. And I think the bettors don't adjust. Us handicappers adjust. Bettors don't adjust. They just bet more. They just bet more favorites, more overs. And by the time they learn, it's week 5 or 6, and they're usually down a significant margin that they pretty much can't dig out of the entire year. And I think it's going to be, we talked today at Docs Daily, Robert, I think this year, 6 games, I believe, week 0, I like 4 of the 6 underdogs. Now, obviously, I'm not betting them all. I only have one top play that I would suggest betting, and it's the game you guys, everybody's been talking about, the Iowa State-Kansas State game. I would bet, I'm not saying you bet them all across the board. I just think it's going to be another underdog year. And I expect 2 of them to win outright. So and that does happen every year. Who did Northwestern beat last year? They beat someone.
I looked this up as I was running those numbers. It was Northwestern against Nebraska. You're Nebraska. You remember that when they played? Didn't they play was that in Dublin too, Scott?
That was a couple of years ago. Scott Frost.
4 years ago.
Yep,
Yeah, it was what Scott Frost went up by double digits and kicked an onside kick in the second half, and Northwestern got the ball, but the Nebraska. Yeah, it's over with. Scott Frost, go back to UCF. Best of luck. You were a great quarterback. You won us a national title. Get the hell out of Lincoln. Come on, Matt Rule, ready to go.
Tell you what, I'm going to be looking at him next week with Central Florida, where he's back with the match they have. All right, hey, Scott, I want to thank you very much for taking some time out of your day. Scott Spreitzer, find his place at Doc Sports, almost 30 years in the industry, as sharp a guy as you're going to find in the betting industry. So thanks for taking some of your time.
Good luck, guys. Always a pleasure, Robert. Take care.
Okay, Craig, so talking about transfers in the transfer portal, I know some people hate it. I got to tell you, I kind of love it. I kind of love it for the players for all of those reasons. But just from a betting and handicapping perspective, I kind of like chaos, right? Because I know that the onus is on the sports books a little bit more than it is for me, where that's kind of the opposite with square bettors, right? The pressure's on the square bettors because of that 10% juice. I don't feel like that as a professional. I like when I know that the sports books don't know what the hell's going on with some of these teams. And they have to put out that number almost like, I hope this is going to happen. What's your opinion about the transfer portal and how that impacts your early season handicapping and betting? Are you more like, okay, I got a good feeling about this, I'm diving into the chaos? Or are you more like, you know what? I want to see how this, and this team does, and then react quickly to it.
I stay away as long as possible.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Because the more I study in the past, the worse I've started the season. I'm a handicapper that I see what I see, and I usually use my eyes to determine how I'm going to bet the teams next week. I pretty much watch every game. I mean, I used to have VCRs taping everything. I mean, that was crazy days. Or even the DVRs. Now, of course, you don't need that. But I try to watch. I definitely watch every NFL game. I watch almost all the Power 5 teams. But I even catch up some of the smaller, especially MAC, because I'm surrounded by all the MAC schools in Ohio. But to me, I stay away as much as possible until a week or two before the season, and then I really dig in hard. Because, as you said, I mean, just look at Stanford. I mean, look how much has changed at Stanford since the spring game. That's the more I would have just wasted time with that. And I probably put into my brain, which, I try to stay away from putting extra stuff in my 2 brain cells, start fighting with each other. So I try not to put, things in your brain that you then can't erase, you just want to bet Stanford because you like this or that. And all of a sudden now those 5 guys are gone. And you still think they're a good team. And it's no, they're not. Probably not going to be a good team.
Right.
So to me, I stay away. I try to get I never, ever. And I would highly suggest this. Never watch ESPN. Never watch ESPN before you make your bets. Especially do not watch game day and watch them make their picks and then go bet. Now I know with ESPN bets now, working with ESPN, now they're all betting against. Dude, if these guys were what we are, they would be doing what we are. They are entertainers. They're great at what they do, but they are not out there to help you win your bets. It's for entertainment purposes only. So that's my PSA for them.
No, and it's a good one. And it's funny that you mentioned that because as I was talking about with Scott, that people just assume that I would watch that all the time. I'm like, no, because I need information. I need facts. I need stats. I need data. I don't need opinions. And that's all that there is there. But I will say, for me, there is a little bit of value with that because it's funny. What you're talking about with your approach to handicapping is very similar to what Jason Sharpe was saying, right? I'm not going to clutter my brain. I'm not going to overdo it with preseason expectations and research. I'm going to go based on what I see. And what I see and what I know and what I can quantify and qualify in front of my face, that is what I'm going to use as my information for the next week. Where I'm the opposite. I'm like, give it all to me. I want all the information ahead of time. I kind of plot my course and map my teams that I like and that I don't like. And then I look for situations to react to that. But to your point with ESPN, once I know who I like and I don't like, I like going to the mainstream sports channels to hear what the word on the street is, to hear what the public is, just so I can be like, okay, everybody likes this team. That makes me know that I'm right going against that more.
Yep. I used to have, and I won't say his name, but I used to own a website with another guy. People probably know who it is if they know. But we had a place in Vegas, and we were right across from Westgate. So we would walk over there because this was back before, everybody had apps. We'd walk over and place our bets on Saturdays and Sundays. If we were in line and the plays we liked, everybody's in line talking about them, we knew. We just wouldn't even bet those teams. Right. We knew you have no chance at winning. If everybody's like whispering, the Raiders, the Rams, right? You're like, oh, shit. Everybody in this place is on the same team. We are not on those teams. So, you are right when that comes to a fact that the more the public is talking about it, and I consider the media the public. I mean, let's be honest, they are. Every once in a while, they'll throw out an underdog, but almost always they're talking about the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias. And it's like at the end of the year, rarely those teams finish against the spread plus. So it's like you get into your head that these teams are going to win. Yes, they're going to win. We don't care about that as much. We care about the spread. And that's what you have to you have to change your mindset on not who's going to win, who's going to cover the spread. Obviously, unless you're going to pick underdogs, and then that.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't like to disagree on things in football with the great Bill Parcells, but his line, "You are what your record says you are." Well, no, not in college football. You're absolutely not who your record says you are. You are what your schedule is and what your statistics against the spread are, at least in my opinion. Now, maybe this won't go anywhere, but one of the questions that I did want to ask you is coming into this season, are there any teams that you feel are a little overvalued, a little undervalued? Is there anybody early in the season that you just kind of have in your mind, based on what they did last year, maybe overachieving or underachieving, where I want to bet against this team? Any overrated or underrated teams that you have singled out heading into the college year?
I mean, it's funny. I think that the two potentially most overrated teams are playing in the biggest game in week one, and that's Ohio State and Texas. Because I think both of them, yes, they both could end up playing for a national championship. Yes, they both, last year they had great depth at Texas at quarterback. Now they don't have there's one injury from, in the SEC where they end up losing 3 or 4 games. And then, maybe I think the Big 12 is a one bid conference, but maybe they end up with 2 good teams. All of a sudden now the SEC only gets 3 teams and they get left out. Same with Ohio State. I think Ohio State could be, Penn State's never really beat let's be honest. James Franklin really has never beat, but this is the year they should beat Ohio State and Michigan. We'll see if they can. So I think both of them have a lot more questions than really what everybody's just kind of saying. Whoever wins this game is the favorite in the national championship. I don't necessarily see it that way. I think both of them have a lot of questions. I actually think a lot of the top 10 has a lot of questions. Even Penn State, because as good as Aller was, there's at times that you're like, is he elite? Is he elite quarterback? I mean, someone out there is saying he's going to be a top 5 draft pick. I'm like, I don't see.
They were saying the same thing. Remember Carson Beck last year? People had Carson Beck as the number 1 quarterback in the draft. I feel like they're talking about the same thing with Drew Aller right now. It's let's slow down a little bit.
Now, if he is that, yes, they should probably be the favorite to the national championship if he can if he has that type of season, because I love what they have around him. I think they're really setting up. But to me, I don't know. I think we get what we saw last year, and now and especially with so much turnover, we see those teams. We just think they're going to be good again, and a lot of times they are, but that's not always the case. So I think there's a lot of questions, and I'm interested. I'm interested in what Texas can do. They lost to Georgia both times last year. It wasn't close, and Ohio State really wasn't that close. So it's can they step up and on the road week 1? I don't know. That seems like a big task.
Yeah, to your point about Texas and Ohio State, we're talking about the difference between good and great, right? If you're betting on those teams to win the national championship, you think they are going to be a great team. Where I see it the way you see it. Are they going to be good this year? Yes, they're full of 5-star talent, but good could be winning 10 games, going to the conference championship, making it to the playoffs, and maybe winning 2 games. But I don't see national championship on either one of these. To your point about Ohio State, we're talking about Drew Aller. We're talking about Arch Manning. Julian Sayin is going to be the starting quarterback for Ohio State. He was a top 3 recruit in last year's class, I believe it was. But I went back and looked. Ohio State's going to try and be the 5th team in 60 years to win back-to-back championship. The previous 4, Nebraska, USC, Alabama, Georgia, they all had the same quarterback back the next year. So they would be the first team in 100 years to go back-to-back. with two different quarterbacks here. So do you
remember Jay Dorsey in that Miami team? They brought back almost everybody, and they did not win the championship the next year. As great as they were, Jay Dorsey was lights out still, and they still didn't lose. Now, granted, that's the years of, it's not the playoffs, so it's like there's a little more like whoever loses this game isn't out, by any stretch of the imagination. So that does help a little bit now, but like you said, you have to have returning starting quarterback with experience. Usually you got to have a secondary and great offensive line. Those are like the three things, especially with experience, if that's possible. That's hard to get now because kids just move all around. And if they do have experience, it's not with you.
Okay. I do want to mention that you have a 5-unit play going this week in the Farmageddon game on Saturday. Also want to mention every day, Docs Daily, 1 o'clock, like and subscribe to this video, and you will be notified every day when that is on or have access to it after the fact. Also want to mention that we have YouTube Premium, where there's 3 separate levels of that, $4.99, Arun Shiva, $19.99, $49.99, where Craig gives you 3 plays a day, every day for the whole month. I'm not going to do the math, but it is a tremendous value. Finally, want to mention, don't forget about our 3-for-1 special. I mentioned that early bird football special that will get you every pick from now until February through the Super Bowl. Tremendous value there for $7.49. You can use that free $60 towards that to knock that down $60 more, but also that 3-for-1 special that we have. You could sign up for, say, a full season of Craig Trapp's football, but then we also give you the option to start for the first 2 weeks. You can pick 2 other guys that you can kind of give a test drive to and see whose style and results and all that fit. So it really is a great system and setup that we have for
especially with there's some of our guys, and I'm kind of in the middle, that only give 1 play,
right,
in NFL. So, and you still like that guy, like Indian Cowboys, he just has usually 1 big play in every sport per day. But if you like him, you get the $7.49, but you want, say Robert that gives it some more clicks, you want to check him out, or me that does 3 or 4 picks a day. So that's a good option to kind of try different styles out, because not every style is your style. Let's be honest. Not
I'm a volume guy. I've told people, I was like, it is not bizarre for me to have 20 college football plays on a weekend card. And that's not a spray and pray. That's my system. That's my value. I've had 7 to 10 winning years. That's kind of how I do it. All right. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, you have that 5-unit play in the noon game. Was there another game on this truncated schedule that you were thinking about, that you are curious about, that jumped out at you? Were there any other games on the board for week 0 that you're like, I want to see how this plays out?
If this was a normal week and there was a lot more games, I think I would have played Hawaii. I think I would. I think Stanford's going to be.
Talk to me.
I think Stanford's going to be the worst team in the conference. I think they might be one of the bottom of the Power 4 now, not the Power 5 anymore. I think they could be the bottom 3 or 4 of those teams. I think 2-3 wins is, and I think Hawaii, this is kind of like shut up or put up type year, or you make a coaching change and you kind of they don't want to do that. They like the system they have. And obviously anytime you can hire from within, a guy that's been there, you start to build from that. But at some point, when you don't make bowl games, that's just how it works in college football now. And so I think this is kind of a must win for Hawaii. And I just think Stanford's that bad.
The market agrees with you. This was the biggest move around the board in week 0, where Stanford was originally posted as like a 2.5, 3-point favorite at some books. Now they are getting 2.5. That's a big move.
I would say I would wait for this one. I kind of have a feeling they'll have some buyback with Stanford money here.
Think so?
Because people will be like, Stanford's from a Power 4. How are they an underdog? I think you'll have some buyback here. And if you get the buyback, then you can probably get them at -1.5, or you can play them on the money line at that point. So I would wait. At the worst, I think it goes to 3, and then if you win by 3, you get a push. I guess that's the only bad thing, but I think there'll be buyback on Stanford.
I was a little bit nervous about this game. Looking back a couple of years ago, Vanderbilt went out to Hawaii, similar spot, similar number, bad Vanderbilt team, and Vanderbilt beat them 63-10. Or something like that. But then again, when the next year, that was 2022, I think when they played them in 2023, they were 14-point road underdogs, Hawaii was, or 14.5, and that game was only a touchdown. So it can cut either way with this stuff. So, all right, Craig, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day. That's Craig Trapp, Doc Sports, 5-unit play in Farmageddon. Oh, he's this way. 5-unit play in Farmageddon at noon. You can check him out at Doc Sports. Take advantage of that free 60. And sorry, Craig, I got to do it. I got to help these people out. Take advantage of that free 60. You can go get his top game and someone else's absolutely for free. Cash in and get yourself rolling into the regular season. All right, that's it for this week's edition of Doc Sports Football Release Show. We will be back next Thursday, same time, 6 o'clock, right when those football plays get released. Hopefully you enjoyed this show. If so, be sure to like and subscribe and take advantage of that promo code WEEK0. That will get you 25% off a weekly package. Until next time, carpe diem and good luck.